Hi, I'm Rachel Dillon.
And I'm Marcus Dillon.
And this podcast is Who's Really the Boss, where we highlight the joys
and challenges
of running a business with your spouse or family.
Our mission is to strengthen families and businesses by helping listeners avoid the mistakes we have made so they can lead
and live happily ever after. Welcome back to Season 2 of Who's Really the Boss podcast.
Thanks for coming back. And so I guess it's not welcome back, it's welcome to Season 2. And yeah.
Well, I didn't know if we were going to have a comeback or if it was like one season and done, and then
one hit wonder.
That was the end of it. That's right.
Yeah.
So
I think, yeah. Something to think about.
So Season 2, I'm excited about. It is going to, of course, be the two of us as usual, but we are hoping to have guests come alongside us this season. And so just with that, if there's any listeners who feel like they would be great guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. You can even set your own topic, or we have a list of topics that you could choose from. So if there's anybody who is a listener and they would like to be a podcast guest, we're just throwing that out there. You can contact me and I'd be happy to talk through what that might look like.
Yep. And with that, I think it would be easy. And we've already tapped some people. So we've got a running list. Looking forward to having those conversations. And you've got to be entertaining to come on. So that's the other low bar to entry. So.
All right. So we're here in the middle of January of 2023. And how you feeling?
Depends on the day. So it's the roller coaster of any business owner. And I'm sure a lot of listeners understand what I mean when I say that. In our industry, accountants typically, even coming out of the holidays, maybe even going into the holidays, are always in a flux of emotion where they want to celebrate the holidays really well, but they know what's coming. They know that tax season is coming, or end of year closeout, Q1 meetings, Q4 wrap up, 1099 season, whatever that looks like in January. And so they really don't get to celebrate the holidays all that much. And so it can be said for us too. You build up all of these goals. You celebrate 2022 or the end of the year, you build up the goals for the new year, and then it's just anxiety season. And so you just kind of, or at least for me, start questioning the goals that you set. Are they even doable? And you're not even through the first week of the new year and you start questioning it all. So that's the day-to-day of a business owner, of a leader. And I'm probably no different than a lot of listeners.
So that's the inspo for our topic of conversation today. Definitely the anxiety of a new year, or the potential anxiety that can come from a new year. I am a little bit different. I feel like it's a clean slate and a time to start over and start fresh and get to start a bunch of new things. And of course, in January, that's all exciting. And so ask me in February what I think about that. Not too sure, but for me, January is exciting typically. And so wanted to just talk through and kind of pick your brain, and you've hit on a few, but just business owners in general, what are some reasons that January might bring some anxiety and not necessarily that sense of just a fresh start and everything's new and easy?
So for me, speaking from experience, you had a good year in the previous year, and the calendar 12/31 is a stopping point. It restarts the clock and it resets the clock as well. So you have to go back out and do it all over again. And sometimes we want to go live back in the success of last year, and we can't. And so you have to keep moving forward. The time keeps moving. You're not able to stop it. So that is also the pressure to perform like you did last year, as far as from a business standpoint. Maybe that is sales or profit, and all the goals that need to be hit in the new year. And like you said, it's a clean slate. So that means all the wins are also removed from that slate, along with all the challenges or losses that were on that slate. So that's part of the anxiety. It's almost like signing up for a 5K or a marathon, getting to the starting line, starting, and then be like, oh, this was a bad idea. I didn't train properly, or, can I quit now? And you haven't even made it through, the first few hundred yards. And that's where you question it. I know that a lot of people do. And so that's the anxiety. I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome with leaders, and they question the goals that they set. And when no goal has been met because it's the beginning of the year and you don't have any wins under your belt, you question it all. And so I think people have to give themselves a ton of grace in that first month, be flexible, be able to, go a different direction if things aren't working out a certain way, and define how long they're going to go that certain direction before they have to adjust those goals.
Yeah. So maybe here at the beginning of the year, the results seem so far away, or the changes that you want to implement seem too overwhelming because they're big changes that need to happen. Potentially, there's anxiety at the beginning of the year because you've had past failed attempts at making changes in January that you either never did or couldn't stick to. And so really wanted to move on from what causes the anxiety and really how to alleviate some of that stress that comes with the beginning of the year. So what are you doing? What do you do? What do other people do to help kind of alleviate that stress of all of this newness in January?
The first thing you got to do is wake up. You got to get out of bed. And so, even if you don't do anything else, put one foot in front of the other. It's a new day. It's a new week, whatever that means to you. And you have to do your job. So I think that's part of it. People build up anxiety around going into a certain meeting or going into a certain call or time of year even. And you just got to start it. You got to start the project. You have to start the phone call. You have to start writing the article, whatever it is for you, and just go forward. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to need whiteout or whatever that is in your world to make corrections. And you just have to give yourself a ton of grace in the beginning. It's no different than training for that marathon or for that 5K. You have to start with a walk. You can't come out of the gate fully sprinting, or you're not going to last the whole 365 days. That's just not attainable for those goals. So I think that's the first thing is you have to start and just get up and get going. You have to boot up the computer. So
yeah, for sure. Starting small, starting bad, starting
get your first failure out of the way early.
That's right. Then the next ones won't feel so bad. That's easier to fail the more you do it. But
that's like skiing. Like skiing, it's better to fall on the first day. And then
I don't have to get that anxiety until March of the whole heights and skiing. So I'm trying to not think about that until we get closer to that trip coming up. But I do have a personal example of just starting even when you're not sure that you're doing it right or have everything that you need. We have put in place a whole new marketing strategy from what we've ever done in the past. And so we were kind of waiting around and planning and talking about ideas and making sure that month to month and week to week things would flow and topics were relevant and all the things. And so finally it was like, okay, but social media needs to have something from Dillon Business Advisors, and our podcast, we like to release an episode every single Monday. And so here we are, January, and we haven't recorded an episode. So I was like, okay, we're just going to go in and record some episodes. Maybe they don't follow the path or the pattern or the exact setup of what we want it to be for the rest of this season 2 of the podcast, but we just need to do it and get it out there, and then we can improve upon that. And so just making sure that we can do one thing that will give us a result of any kind, and then we can tweak and move on from there. So just reminding people that it doesn't have to be perfect to start, and you don't even have to be motivated to start. You just need to be disciplined enough to go start. And then when you see some results, have some action, you start to gain some momentum. And that's really where that motivation and confidence comes from.
Yeah. And I think in your anxiety of starting, be productive. So you go back to those college days where you were anxious about a test, and that was the cleanest maybe an apartment building has ever been because you put off doing what's necessary to go do anything else, but you're productive in the grand scheme of things. And so if there is something like that you were just putting off in this new year, at least starting, channel those energies into something that could be productive, that your future self will thank you for. And then that way it's just, it's that much more momentum for you to start and keep rolling downhill, I guess, if that's the analogy that we're using. Because for you just to not do anything at all, like just continue the holiday season, stay in the sweatpants and, avoid the world around you, things are going to start passing you by. And when we say things are going to start passing you by, opportunities are going to start passing you by. So in this season, for most of our friends who are in the accounting space, this is what we would call opportunity season, because most people are looking for some type of accounting or tax help just because this time of year. And so know that to be true all the way up until mid-April, obviously. And then people kind of go hibernate again as far as prospects and leads and clients who want to speak to you. So if you're going to do anything, just get started, kind of build up momentum and go serve people, go start talking to people. And that would be the recommendation for Q1, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a time you can remember when you just started small and then were able to gain momentum after maybe started without a really clear plan or all the things that you needed to do it perfectly?
Oh, every day. Like that's how I operate with life, right? So no, I think to answer your question, you have to build up a rhythm to give yourself some success. And even if it is planning out your week, so on Sunday evening, looking at your calendar, planning out your week, at least getting mentally focused for the week ahead, that will put you ahead of where you were if you did not do that. Because then you can be thinking about, hey, I've got this phone call, I've got this meeting with this person. I'd really like to hit on this subject or make sure that they know this. And so I think it's just being prepared, be in a season of preparation, regardless of whatever else is going on in life. And for 2023, I think part of what I'm trying to focus on is actually being present in the moment. And if you do have meetings, trying to have your full attention in that space, being present where you are. And it's going to take discipline and practice to get better at that.
Yeah. I think one thing that you said that just made me think, when you say planning out your week, is actually putting on the calendar that one next step you can take that next day to move you closer towards your goal. Not the one that gets you to your goal, but the one that gets you one step closer. And then the next day, what's one thing that you can do? And maybe the goal is different and it's something that you do on a weekly rhythm or a monthly rhythm, but that you go ahead and put that thing on the calendar. So it's scheduled and intentionally there's time for it. And then you can, start making headway in that direction.
Yeah. And maybe it's one of those things where you've had on your mind as you wrapped up the previous year, hey, I'd really like to get some help with X. And so it was maybe, hey, I want to get some help on, from a client perspective, some help with bookkeeping or payroll, or just know my tax situation. I'd like a higher level financial executive to help me plan the future of my business and what I'm doing. Is it making sense? Am I balancing out the revenue, the net income, the cash flow distributions that I'm taking out of the business? Is that also in line with the value that I want to create of my business? So all of those things that people put off, the beginning of the year is a great time to have those conversations. And sometimes the first step in having that conversation is submitting a contact us submission on a website, or calling back that person that you know that does that, or even soliciting feedback from friends or from other people that know your situation a little bit different and asking them for advice. So even starting real small in that aspect to where it could lead to big future wins is something that can be done today, just to get more education, to learn more about that situation or learn more about that service that your future self will thank you for.
Yeah. And reaching out to someone else helps with accountability, helps monitor progress, which I think monitoring progress also will help remove some of the stress of all of these changes or new things that you're wanting to start here at the beginning of the year, making sure that you have some way to, cross off items on a list of things that need to happen to get to that end result or that end goal, or just being able to see the momentum that you're actually gaining and not just going off your opinion, because there's going to be bad days or hard days and things aren't going to get done. And then there's going to be days where you got more done than you thought, as far as making progress on that goal. And so you never want to go off just your opinion of how you think things are going, because it may not end well by the time you get to the end of the year or to the due date that you've set on that goal. So definitely having a tangible way to track progress, whether that's through an app, through a person, a handwritten calendar, or something that you're crossing off days or adding progress to those days, is always good to have for sure.
Yeah, and I think January is full of big ambition. No matter who you are, you're typically coming out of the gate with way too many goals or way too many initiatives. So the other thing to kind of mention is January, I think, is also financial wellness month, or it's every day has a celebration, every month has a thing, right? But I think that financially, January is a good start of your year. So you do want to reflect on your budget, see how 2022 ended, set the budget for 2023. And what you can be doing there from a financial perspective is looking at the budget or excess expenses even, and seeing, okay, what in the new year, what don't I want to spend money on? What don't I want to allocate budget to? And that's speaking from experience. That was something that I got done last week just because I was anxious and wanting to put stuff off. And I was like, man, I need to go cancel this subscription. We're not really using this. How can I renegotiate that cable bill or that cell phone bill? And all of that, to build up excess profit and excess cash flow that my future self will thank me for, hopefully. But whenever we talk about financial, beginning of the year is also kind of tied in very close to that. It's also from like a CFO and from a controller perspective, it's also means a lot. Like it is truly the reset of those financial results. And we do want to see that momentum going. The other piece is what we do from a projection and a planning standpoint. For our clients, we run a lot of rolling 12 months, like P&Ls and everything like that, just because in the business world, like nobody cares that 12/31 was the line in the sand. You truly have to look at businesses on a rolling 12-month, frequency to see how things are really progressing from month to month and seeing the trends in the business. So those are all the different aspects to think through. And especially from like a financial start to the new year, a lot of people have anxiety about that. And just as we mentioned, start small. And what would your future self thank you for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth noting. So people who are having a little bit of anxiety right now because they have had failed attempts at resolutions or goals or changes previously, I think it's something to remember. It's very important to remember that you really can't fail on these things that you're setting out to do. You can really only learn from them unless you literally just give up or never start. Because even if you learn that that's not a goal that's important to you anymore, that's not a goal that actually aligns with your values, or that's not a goal that's going to make you better or your future better, maybe that is what you learn. And maybe the learning costs a lot. Maybe it costs a lot financially, maybe it costs a lot of time, but always a lesson can be learned from every attempt that doesn't go the way that you wanted. And so I think that that's something really is not to worry about. Are people going to think I'm a failure? Definitely figuring out the impact that it might have on those around you, especially if you're a business owner, what that means for your team and your family. But definitely everything, there's always a way out, another solution. There's always something different that can be done. And when you learn from something, you're going to be better for the next time. You're going to be an encouragement to somebody else who's trying it, helping them find a better way, and then even to yourself.
Yeah. And another, as we close, another real world example, like even in our family life, I think, you have seen a counselor before. That's not anything, hidden. And one of our daughters, actually, we make her go see a counselor just because she won't talk to us. So we want to make sure that she at least has a venue to talk to somebody else. And something that you said the other day was really impactful, because it was probably the situation that was happening in the counselor with our daughter, because it came up that we keep on asking her, hey, what's the status of this? What's the status of this? And then she came home from that appointment and was like knocking that out. So I think you had some background on probably what was said in that session. And I think that was really good and needs to be shared.
Yeah. So Kinley was working on filling out some more information for a college that she wants to go to. So she hasn't gotten her final acceptance from this college. They needed more information from her. And so we kept asking her, have you written that, paragraph explaining your current situation and all of these things? Have you submitted your most recent transcript? And she was worried about that it needed to be really good, in her words.
It needed to be perfect.
So she needed time. She needed time to think through and write that paragraph explanation to the college. And so she went to see her counselor, and then magically it was the right time to write that paragraph and submit it. And so I just thought, if I was sitting in one of my counseling sessions and I was telling my counselor about the frustrations or annoyances or things that were stressing me out, I mean, really her advice to me is, okay, so what can you do to make that stop? Like, what can you do? And so that's what I was telling you, that I think her counselor probably said, well, what could you do to make them stop asking you those questions? And of course, the answer is, well, just submit the paragraph, submit the form. It literally will take you like 3 seconds. So just push submit, and then the parents will stop asking, and you won't have that stress anymore. That will be one thing eliminated off your mind. So, yeah.
So all the lessons that you learn from having a senior in high school and about ready to fly the coop, but can relate to that.
And that's where she says this counseling is doing nothing, that it's not helpful. It's a waste of her time. Well, it's not a waste of my time if it helps get that college application information submitted that much quicker. Yeah. So definitely worth it.
Yeah. So really good way to close it out. I think that's just low hanging fruit for a lot of people, and realizing start small and do something that your future self will thank you for. Maybe it's just making the bed. I don't know. So
well, what's one thing you started? What's one thing you started in 2023? And what was the first step that you took?
There's so many things that I restarted. I don't know of anything new, but I restarted trying to dial in nutrition. And I know that that's so many people with the new year. We are on January 11th, and I don't believe I've been out to eat and had an out to eat meal in like 10 days. And so that's pretty big. You may call, I may be false on that. No,
I think you're right. I think you're good.
But yeah, just knowing kind of what's going in as fuel for your body, and being able to track that and feel better, and just making that a habit. Hopefully that does, kind of carry further into the year. But yeah, that was for me. It was restarting. So it didn't feel too foreign because it was something I was already used to, just getting back into the habit of it. How about you?
I would say, of course, restarted a lot of things, or just continued. I should probably not restarted. I just continued them from last year. So one thing that I started, I got a new journal for like morning quiet time. The first thing I did was open it up and read, like, what are the different pieces? What do I need to have? What do I need to be able to do to get this started? So I did that the night before I wanted to start, instead of trying to do learn what it's all about and then also do the first day and the first sitting. So that was definitely helpful.
Yep. You got to crack the book to read it. You got to download it.
And that was a gift from you. So shout out to you for gifting me something I didn't even know I wanted. And so far I love it.
I like to gift people work. And so like that's.
Well, I think you like to gift people things you might want to try, see what their success and their opinion of it is. And then you may adopt it after the fact.
And then I'll own it as my own. And I was like, yeah, I totally started that. So, yeah. And also just see how long it takes you to complete that and see if I have the time to do it. So, but really good stuff. Thanks for kicking back off the podcast this next season. Looking forward to a lot more.
Awesome. This is a great conversation, and I'll see you on the next. Thanks for hanging with us to the end of another episode. If you have thoughts, comments, or feedback you would like to share, please leave us a comment or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Join us again next week for another great conversation.